Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Awaken the World, a day at the Monastery, a 12-hour live retreat. Today is Saturday, November 17th. It is 8 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. And this morning we have our welcome satsang, our meditation, and the first exercise of our day at a retreat together. And Kelly doesn't know yet, but she's going to have to do the exercises too. Ha! So I see Carol is here this morning. Good morning, Carol. So nice to see you. And Kelly's here today as well. Obviously, she's sitting over at her computer. And we had hoped to move the venue to our meditation and workout and yoga room in the basement. We have a lot of trees and plants and our Buddha statue down there and things like that. And we just, it didn't work with the camera. Down the road, perhaps, if we upgrade from a different style of camera, something a little more wide angle, but it really didn't give the image that we were hoping for. And I see Debbie is also here this morning. Good morning, Debbie. Nice to see you. Wow, 4 a.m. for you. That's earlier than I was up this morning. I did okay. I was about 5:30, to be honest. And we're so happy to see all of you here today. I mean, this is one of these things that we can all benefit from. We can all grow from the experience, taking a day away. And not involving ourselves in the world any more than necessary. So this morning, 8 a.m., and we're going to have a meditation after we have a discussion this morning, and we're going to talk about the first exercise. And because we're on Facebook, 4 p.m. That's right. Sorry. Yeah, it'll be 4 p.m. now, but the last one will be at 4 a.m. So let's start with our discussion this morning. And our discussion is going to revolve around the first exercise. Now, I know there's one or two of you who may have already done this exercise, and I would encourage you to reapproach it again. So what we're going to talk about this morning is our propensity to judge. And this is probably one of the biggest issues in awakening and moving beyond that dark night of the ego, moving beyond that egoic sense of self that continues to fight against what's happening right now. And this judgment that we bring in, first and foremost, we judge ourselves, and then we take that judgment and we take it out into the world. And where did that judgment begin with? Well, that judgment, unfortunately, begins at home. That is our first experience of judgment. And depending on the environment you were raised on or in, and it almost doesn't matter what environment, almost every environment, with the exception of very few, causes this judgmental attitude. And it begins when we're young. And it begins with such concepts as you're bad, or that is not acceptable, or you're wrong, or you shouldn't have done that, or you should have done something else. And these unintentional judgments placed upon us by our parents, of course, we get used to that idea. We get used to the understanding that we can judge things as bad or good, and that when we behave, we're known to be good. And when we're misbehaving according to our parents, we're known to be bad. And depending on the amount of dysfunction and unawareness within the family dynamic, this judgment, of course, can get very severe and very difficult. And we then take this judgment as a child and we bury it deep inside ourselves. And we continue to have that judgment perpetrated upon ourselves in the quietness, in our unconscious mind. So even though consciously we may be going about our existence, there are all these unconscious judgments that we have programmed, that we have accepted for our own, and that, yeah, I see that Kelly has written, meditations are great for going to sleep with. No. Sorry, honey. The point of meditation is not to sleep. The point of meditation is actually to be hyper aware. And that's what we practice in meditation, not sleepiness. Yes, sometimes you might have to go to bed to actually, engage in the meditation if it's late at night. But the goal is not to fall asleep. The goal, of course, is to stay present and stay aware throughout the entire meditative period. So I'm going to have to, yeah, and you do sleep well. You don't have to catch us on the rewind, Terry, if you're still around, and keep in mind that you can pop in anytime during the day as well. You don't have to be here all day. So I'm going to rely on Kelly to let me know if there's any messages that pop up that I have to address, because as of now, the screen is disappearing beyond what I can see. And we're going to continue with this judgment. So we have our judgment that begins at home, and that judgment is perpetrated upon us by our parents, by the other children in school who are having judgments perpetrated upon them by their parents. And then, of course, there's the judgments of our system. And if you look around, judgment runs rampant. We judge people as good or bad. We judge people as criminal or not criminal. We see a homeless person and we think that they have failed. And when I speak of this, I'm speaking in general terms. Of course, there are those of us who work hard to move past judgment. And this is what I would entreaty you to look at, especially in your own life. Judgment, the most nefarious form of judgment, of course, is the should or should not. Am I doing the right thing? And you can spend a lifetime stalled, trapped, locked into place, being afraid to do nearly anything because you're worried about whether what you're doing is right or not. And here's the good news. There are no right or wrong doings in this world. There are only what you do and the natural effect of what you do. And these effects are natural. Everything in our universe, in our physical world, is all about the balance of those two energies, the balance of the relative universe, the yin and the yang, the conscious and the unconscious, the hot and the cold, the up and the down. And in our state of programmed judging, we look for ourselves to be doing the right thing all the time, and we chastise ourselves when we don't do the right thing. The good news is there really is no right or wrong. Those are human concepts. Those are concepts that we have dredged up in our mind. Now, let's look at a very real example of this. There was an article in the paper today that said that the U.S. has spent $6 trillion since 9/11 on wars and killed 500,000 people in the process. Now, we could look at that and we could judge that as wrong, and we could judge that as bad. And in an enlightened society, certainly we would never consider war. But right now, war still serves to show us what we don't want. It serves to show us what is no longer serving us. It is serving to show us what is costing us lives, costing us health, costing us freedom, costing us, and I hate to use this word, but let's face it, we all worship the god of money before all other gods. And it costs money. $6 trillion, and we could imagine what that $6 trillion could go to. And we gnash our teeth and we wail and we push up against. The pushing up against anything, the judgment of anything, allows it to continue by the energy, by the conscious attention that we feed into it. Do not judge yourself. Allow yourself instead to become judgeless. And it's a process. I'm not there yet either. You will work on it, and you will work on it on a regular basis. You must come to understand when you are judging something, when you are unconsciously placing that label. And those labels are diminutive. Those labels help to reduce our sense of self. And Debbie says, is it really true to say there's no right or wrong? Isn't it wrong to abuse the children? Isn't it wrong to exploit others and make money? Isn't it wrong to cheat on a partner? And, you know, on its face, I would agree with all those. I don't want to be cheated on by my wife. I don't want to be abused. I don't want to exploit others. And I certainly don't want to see children abused either. But what we have to understand is we are in an illusion. The abuse that is perpetrated from one against another is through a base misunderstanding that there is separation and a difference between you and I. And in this, there is no right and wrong. In this, right and wrong disappear. And we see through the illusion that indeed every experience we are having is serving to evolve us and to grow us. And it can be very difficult to be aware of a lifetime, and I personally have awareness of some of these lifetimes, where I intentionally set up a situation, as in this life, where I was going to be sexually abused by my father. Most of it prior to the age of 6 years old. As a matter of fact, almost all of it prior to the age of 6. My sister, who was also being abused at the time, was 4 years old. Now, when I was younger, I admit it, Debbie, I fully admit it, I hated my dad. And I hated my mother for not doing anything about it. But as I grew in awareness, as I grew in conscious evolution, as I grew to look with wider and wider eyes and less judgmental eyes, I saw how even the abuse has served my existence. I see that my mother, in the state she was in and in the physical illness that she was dealing with, how she had no strength, no energy, no ability to stop what was going on. I see all of this much more clearly now. And moving past right or wrong is difficult, but it is necessary. There indeed is no right and there is no wrong. There is only that which serves or does not serve. And even serve or does not serve is a minimalist judgment, because in fact, it all serves. Every aspect of creation, every aspect of our physical existence is serving us. It is not right. It is not wrong. It is simply what is. And then it is up to us to determine, with more and more refined judgment, with more and more refined vision, to allow us to see the rightness in it occurring because it has occurred, and then the offering it gives us to make new choices going forward, to raise our consciousness as individuals and as groups, as families, as communities, as a country, and as a species. And yes, that is very difficult. It's a tough one to get by. You know, if somebody robs a bank, for example, we say that person is bad, they're a thief. But let's look a little deeper. We don't know perhaps the whole story. And, you know, perhaps Les Miserables is a prime example of this, where you have a homeless person who is going to jail for stealing a loaf of bread. Is it wrong to steal the loaf of bread, or is it wrong to imprison the homeless person who was hungry, who had to steal a loaf of bread in order to eat? These are the questions that plague us, and these questions can become quite overwhelming, and to be honest, they don't really serve us. What instead has to be done is we have to see without the judgment. We have to see more deeply. Judgment against ourselves and judgment against others limits your perceptions of them within the frame of the judgment. I.e., I struggle repeatedly with, if I were to run into Kelly's mother again, I struggle repeatedly with not judging her behavior, and instead understanding from whence that behavior arises, and not judging that behavior as good or bad, but simply judging that behavior as what is, and then choosing for myself what to express. You see, the problem with judgment is, as soon as we've judged, if we judge it negative, we start pushing up against it. If we judge it positive, we want it to stick around. Neither one of those things will work, and neither one of those reflect our reality. Nothing is static. No matter how much it seems to be standing still, everything is in a state of perpetual growth, perpetual evolution, perpetual motion. In our limited understanding, and this is the only thing that I can say to you to help work with this particular aspect of judgment and right or wrong. Because of course, when it comes to a child rapist, you know, it's very hard to look at a child rapist and see them as anything else as bad. But when we look deeper, there is a young child inside that child rapist. And that person has lived through horrible things themselves. And what they're doing is an outpouring of that. We cannot judge their actions alone if we must judge. If we must judge, we must look at the whole picture. The whole of society, the whole of their upbringing, the people who were there to help or not there to help. Every single one of us is having a journey, and that journey is a unique journey. Veronica says, do you not believe there's pure evil? And Veronica, my answer is absolutely not. The opposite of love is simply fear, not evil. It's a common misconception. Evil is a judgment made by man, and only by man. Nothing could be evil in a universe made entirely as part and parcel of that sea of consciousness, of that loving creator. The darkness is there to show the light, but it is not evil. The serial killer we would call pure evil, who goes out and rapes and murders 30 prostitutes before being caught, is not evil. Twisted, yes. twisted by our society, twisted by their upbringing, twisted by their own mind, perhaps, but never evil. You know, I have been fortunate enough to have died twice, and we've talked about this quite a few times. And in those two death experiences that I had, I was dead 8 minutes the first time and 11 minutes the second time, and that was full clinical death. I was gone. The first time I died, if there was a person who was doomed to hell, it was me. I hated God with a passion. I killed with glee as a sniper. I even killed people I didn't need to kill. If there was someone who was going to go to hell that day when I died the first time, it would have been me. There was no hell. There was just the loving presence of an all-inclusive creator that simply wanted to know whether my actions to date were serving me or not. Was I feeling good about what I was doing? And of course, that deeper answer was no, that I was not. But do I believe in pure evil? Absolutely not. I have never seen pure evil. I have seen broken, desperate, despair-filled, fear-filled, anger-filled, which of course is a relative of fear, individuals behaving in ways that we would consider evil. But in truth, if we must use the word evil, the evils began with what was perpetrated upon them many, many years before. So, short answer, no. I don't believe that there is a pure evil. This entirety of creation is God itself, expanding, growing, recognizing itself, looking back upon itself. The concept of evil falls right along with the concept of sin, a simple misunderstanding. Let us work today with ourselves to let go of judgment, to begin to see more deeply, to understand that despite the atrocities we may be witnessing upon our planet, we are being shown this to teach us, to grow, to evolve, to understand that we are indeed all one, and to harm another is to harm ourselves. It is not until we fully grasp this reality that our judgments can begin to fade. And as I said, first and foremost, you want to drop judgment on yourself. And then judgment on your family members, and then judgment on your community, and then judgment on your country, and then judgment on the planet. I think on some level, that is why if you have come from the Christian faith, you are going to be very much stuck on judgment, because the Christian faith is a very judgmental faith. It's all about a judgmental God. It's all about a God who will judge you and murder you outright, and then condemn you to a place called hell for all eternity should you slight him. It's easy to see how we still have judgment. Become more like Christ. You will notice Christ did not judge the murderer. He did not judge the prostitute. He did not judge the people in power. He did not judge the poor. His compassion and love for all overflowed in almost every situation. So let us look at the first exercise for today, and then we're going to get straight to our meditation this morning. We are going to focus on this first exercise on judgment. And what I want you to do for this morning, and we're going to do this after the meditation and the time until the next session, is I would like you to take a pen and a piece of paper, and I would like you to write down all the times in your life that you have judged yourself. We're working with ourselves right now. I would like you to write down all the times in your life that you have judged what you have done to be negative, to be harmful. And you can start off with, they can be as innocuous as you want. It can be, when I was young, I punched another kid in the school ground. To be honest, that happened to me when I was in grade 3. That was the first time. In grade 3, I punched another child in the face in the back of the field at lunchtime. And I punched him as hard as I possibly could. And I felt very guilty about that because I hurt that kid. I made them afraid of me. Now, I could judge myself for that, and I did for a long time. But when I looked closely at that issue, I had a lot of anger about the fact that my dad wasn't around. My mother was a single mom, and she was sick, and we were poor, and we were living off of almost nothing. And in grade 3, this kid had been making fun for days and days and days and days, almost since the beginning of the school year, about the clothes I wore, the lack of my shoes being designer shoes, the fact that sometimes I had patches on my clothes, that I couldn't participate in some events because of the cost. And that child made fun of me about it. And when I was given the opportunity to get back, I took the opportunity. I punched him so hard that he ran home crying to his mother and father, and he stayed away from the school for a few days, and then I was talked to and brought into the principal's office. And I refused to apologize to that child, as a child myself. So that is one simple judgment. And what I want you to do is I want you to take all the major judgments in your life, all the times you felt you've really screwed it up. Write them down. And then allow yourself the imagination to look at what you have written again and look more deeply. Look with the eyes of Christ. Look with the eyes of compassion and understanding and awareness. And go ahead and write down on that page below each judgment the different things that come up with you when you look from a wider, more compassionate, more understanding viewpoint. And then we're going to talk about some of these. We're going to talk about some of these judgments we've placed upon ourselves, and we are going to see how they impact our lives. And I do want to make one little point here. Is Kelly had said that that she was judgmental and she condemned people who were evil, and and yes, Debbie has also said that Christ said not to judge, and that is very true. We should not judge. And Veronica had replied that we are all victims of circumstance, and indeed we are unconscious victims of our circumstances until we start to become conscious. And in that consciousness, we can re-examine our circumstances. We can re-examine our judgments. And this is where the strength and the energy and the power can start coming to pour back into your being. So that is our first exercise this morning. When we're done our meditation, we're going to end our live session. We will be back here at 10 a.m. on the group channel again, and I would hope that you will come with some of the judgments that you have found about yourself and some of the new ways you're looking at that judgment. And perhaps you'll have an example you're willing to share with us. So for now, let us immerse ourselves in the morning meditation. We will leave the judgment on the paper, and we will deal with the judgment on the paper after our meditation. This morning we are going to start with a fitting morning meditation, and that is, of course, Om. A beautiful way to start the day. We're going to open the door to our higher selves. We're going to, actually I can put up the storyboard here for a minute. So in the A, in the syllable Ah, we are literally speaking out creation. And then in the Oo, okay, that is the preservation period, the resonant vibration that keeps rolling on. Okay, the initial sound, Ah, that is the creation. We're preserving, we're putting out a vibration that rolls through all of creation. And that vibration has a resonant field that keeps resonating. That is why everything in the universe decays at different rates. Each one of those items in the universe, each one of those objects, us included, has this preservative vibratory field that is still ringing like the soft sound of a Tibetan meditation bowl, reverberating on and on. When the reverberations fade, so too your physical appearance will also fade. The and the silence, the fourth syllable after the M, the The is the liberation. It is the fading out of that vibratory state and the pregnant silence of all. That pure consciousness that remains after the vibration has faded. All of these are aspects of Shakti, or divine energy, the energy that creates everything. Again, 432 hertz, considered to be the foundation of all of nature. So let us begin our meditation. We have a candle here. You can use the candle. Perhaps you wish to use your own icon or image, or simply close your eyes. Today we come together in retreat. We allow ourselves to retreat from the physical world. We retreat from the noise. We do not hide. We are simply coming home. We are retreatising ourselves. We are coming to the feet of our own inner guru. I would ask that you find yourself in a comfortable position. Allow your back to remain upright, your head and neck balanced and in alignment. Perhaps that golden thread leading up into the heavens, connecting your crown chakra, feeding you divine light and love, helping to keep you aware and upright. As with every day we meditate together, we cross time and space. We truly come together and we share a deep conscious breath. And we will begin. Just for this moment, I will not judge. I choose to see every aspect of creation as an evolution, as an opportunity to grow and expand. I choose to no longer judge myself. I will examine my past judgments through the eyes of my new consciousness. I am creator, preserver, and liberator of my own being. Allow the waves of divine light to break upon the shores of your awareness. The entirety of creation gently breathing itself in and out. Notice, despite the rocks and walls and pitfalls of our own judgments, those divine waves of light wash over all of creation. The rain feeds the righteous and the murderer. The sun warms the rapist and the priest in the church. The earth provides for the imprisoned and the free. The wind cools all creatures. The light of the divine rests in the heart of all beings. There is no more light. There is no less light. There is only light. Rest with me for a few moments. Focus your attention on those divine waves of light. We will meditate together in the silence as the sounds of the mantra continue to break upon the shores of our awareness. Remember the sound of these divine waves of light. They do not emanate from without, but from within the core of your being, accessible to you at any time. Slowly, gently, we allow ourselves to refocus back into this physical world. And gently open your eyes. You know, another little brief story about judgment to help you on your way. In this story of Buddha, his brother, his half-brother, was so jealous, so enraged, hated Buddha, blamed Siddhartha for all of his own troubles. Siddhartha's half-brother went out of his way to ridicule, to ruin, and eventually to try to kill Buddha. And his brother, in one last attempt to end Buddha's life, found his own life coming to an end. And I am moved. I am moved by the awareness, by the compassion, by the understanding that Buddha saw none of the faults that we would have placed upon his half-brother. That Christ saw none of the faults that we still today in his name place upon others. Nelson Mandela jailed illegally, wrongly, befriended and loved his captors. And through that, changed their lives. Allow this to sit with you today, over the next hour, as you work on the list of your own judgments that you perpetrate upon yourself. And we will return in 1 hour, 10 o'clock. We will discuss this first exercise, and we will meditate again. As I have said previously, the point of this day at the monastery, this retreat, what you get out of it will be totally up to you. I am here for you today. I would invite you to do the exercise. We'll come back in an hour and we'll talk about it. Much love. Namaste to you all. And we'll see you back here on the group page at 10 a.m.